Sterile Insect Technique by Tri Ramadhani, A11. And then continued with paper ID 38111, Seroprevalence of Japanese encephalitis virus in pigs and cows in Tangerang Regency by Muhammad Umar Yandi, A12. And the last video will be 8116, Trypanosomiasis in rats in Banjarnegara district and potential impact for public health by Tri Wijayanti, A30. So please, the co-host to play the video. Thank you.
Using sterile insect technique. This study is part of a research on the prospect for the utilization of sterile insect with irradiation technique in vector control of Culecunque fasciatus lymphatic filariasis in Pekalongan City. The introduction. Culecunque fasciatus is a cosmopolitan mosquito with worldwide distribution, more frequent in tropical and subtropical area in association with the human dwellings. Besides causing nocturnal discomfort and allergic responses, Culecunque fasciatus has important medical relevance. This species is established as the main factor of Wucheria bancrofti in cities of the Indonesia. Vector control of lymphatic filariasis effort have not been a priority in the filariasis elimination program and is an additional strategy support by WHO. This is done to reduce transmission and other mosquito infection. Current problem with the increasing number of disease transmission towards mosquito, some conventional vector control tool losing effectiveness and resistant to insecticide. Alternative efforts are needed to be used as alternative to control vector mosquito population, such as the sterile insect technique or SIT. This study aims to distribution ratio and mating competitiveness of the sterile male Culecunque fasciatus on a laboratory scale. Material and method. The first preparation of test mosquito. The Culecunque fasciatus strain used in this study came from Pabean village, Pekalongan City. Eggs of the same generation, F2, were used for all tests. The second, the separation of male and female pupae from colonization was done manually or separator. After separation, the female pupae were put in separate cage and stored in the entomology laboratory of the Banjarnegara Research and Development Center before testing. The male pupae were put into a bottle and stored in a cool box and taken to Batan, Jakarta to be irradiated. Irradiation was carried out by certified personnel from the Pair Batan Irradiation Laboratory using a gamma cell irradiator with a cobalt-60 radioactive source. The use of gamma cell is based on the position of the radioactive source that surround the material so that the material gets a more uniform absorption dose. To measure the ability of sterile male to compete with normal male of Culecuncuus fasciatus, a distribution ratio test of sterile male, normal male was carried out based on the assumption approach. The number of male 25 and female 25 Culecuncuus fasciatus population in field is the same in each treatment. After the adult mosquito leave the pupae, fish enter the sterile and normal male mosquito into the experiment cage, then followed by normal female mosquito allowed to carry out the mating process. The female mosquito are taken and transferred to another cage for its maturation. Individual female mosquito were put in a paper cup covered with a black cloth for resting, and at the bottom given water for oviposition. Counting the number of eggs and the number of eggs is done visually with the aid of a stereo microscope. Data analysis, the difference in the ratio of the distribution with the index value of the mating competitiveness and fertility will be analyzed by one-way ANOVA test, mating of competitiveness by C index, fertility by person. Result and discussion. There are different in fertility between normal control treatment and mating ratio. The number of eggs produced by female at its combination of mating ratio was not significantly different from the control, both fertile and sterile control. The competitiveness index of the result of this study show that the competitiveness of irradiated male mosquito is different for its distribution ratio. The competitiveness value is directly proportional to the ratio of irradiated males. A ratio 5:1 show better sterility than fertile control, but was unable to induce sterility in sterile control, meaning that a sterile male mosquito ratio greater than 5:1 was required to factor control of the Culecuncuus fasciatus population in a field. The results show that 37.5% of the mosquito presumed with normal males, 37% of the offspring were intermediate, and 25% of male offspring were sterile. In this study, the individual hatch rate was along the fertility spectrum. The higher the ratio of sterile male to the closer to hatching rates in the sterile control area. Different mosquito density in each cage, the ratio of 5:1 mosquito has the highest density, affecting competitiveness with normal male to mate with normal female. The conclusion, the higher the ratio of sterile male Culecuncuus fasciatus, the higher the mating competitiveness and the lower the eggs hatch ability. The Mating Competitiveness Index show the ability and quality of the sterile male Untitled Chapter during release in the treatment cage population and provides an overview of the possible result during release in the open. I would like to thank you all for taking time to listen my presentation. Thank you. Have a nice day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you. Next, the second video.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my paper presentation entitled Seroprevalence of Japanese encephalitis virus in pig and cow in Tangerang Regency. I'm Muhammad Umar Yandi, and this is the co-author of my paper. The background of this research is that Japanese encephalitis caused by the Japanese encephalitis virus. Japanese encephalitis is vector-borne zoonosis disease in human and some animal. Symptom in human including fever, dizziness, neck rigidity, and even death. In animal, infection usually didn't cause any symptom, but in pregnant female, it can cause reproductive abnormality, miscarriage, stillbirth, and birth with neurological disorder. In the transmission cycle of Japanese encephalitis, pig and poultry are considered as amplifying hosts, mosquito as vector, human and other animal as dead-end hosts. Japanese encephalitis spread mainly in Asia, including Indonesia. Japanese encephalitis in Indonesia is categorized as a high incident area, but with a minimal to no vaccination program. G transmission cycle begin with the reintroduction of infected mosquito or vertebrate to the amplifying host vertebrate population. The transmission is this transmission is maintained in vector infection and the Japanese encephalitis virus reservoir. This transmission begin to take its toll when it spread to the dead-end host. In Indonesia, there are 10 species of virus, and several regions in Indonesia have reported seropositive Japanese encephalitis in pig population. Japanese encephalitis risk factor in Tangerang Regency have several risk factors, including the largest pig population in Banten, cases of non-specific encephalitis every year, and population 3.5 million have paddy field 36,163 hectares of paddy field. All of this we consider as major risk factor for transmission of Japanese encephalitis. The objective of this research was to evaluate the spread of Japanese encephalitis virus among pig and cattle serologically in Tangerang Regency. The method of this research that this is a cross-sectional approach with purposive sampling. We selected 4 sub-districts based on history of encephalitis case and presence of pig and cattle in the area. There are 4 sub-districts, which is Pandongan, Sepatan Timur, Tiga Raksa, and Solear. There are 30 pig farm and 42 cattle farm in this study sample. We obtained 101 swan serum and 110 bovine serum. We also interviewed the owner or head of the farm to fill out the livestock management questionnaire. The serum was serologically tested with competitive Elisa kit, GE, IgG porcine and bovine supplied by BT laboratory, with only 94 pig serum and 94 cow serum continue to do Elisa test. Reactive serum were then followed by RT-PCR test. All the data were then analyzed descriptively. As we see the result, we found positive pig and cow based on Elisa Test. They are 6.38% seroprevalent in pig and 7.44% seroprevalent in cattle. However, based on the follow-up RT-PCR test, there was no GE virus RNA in the ELISA reactive pig and bovine serum. Negative result in porcine serum are possible because viremia in pig can be detected as soon as 1 to 5 days post-infection and persists within 3 to 5 days. This is indicate that the pig infected by the GE virus is more than 10 days previously. The limitation of our study is that we do not get data on the arrival of pig to each farm, so we cannot conclude whether the pig are infected before coming to the farm or after arriving to the farm. We know that the turnover of pig on farm is relatively fast. Positive ELISA result in cow also indicate that there is a high probability of local transmission to the GE virus to animal in Tangerang Regency, considering that most of the cow were born and raised locally. We also expected negative PCR result in cow serum because several previous studies only obtained virus isolation from symptomatic cow cerebrum, not from healthy cow serum. As we in table 2, a positive ELISA result in porcine serum can occur because the presence of maternal antibody. Based on previous research, maternal antibody against GE virus in piglet was obtained from its sow and disappeared between 1.5 to 4 months. And if we look at the age of positive pig in the range of 3 to 7 months, there is still a possibility that a positive ELISA result is due to maternal antibody or infection on the farm. If we look at the characteristic of livestock management, all sorts of positive GE virus IgG pig came from outside of Tangerang Regency area, and almost all farms report livestock death. This indicated the possibility of serologically positive pig being infected from previous farm before entering Tangerang Regency. The mortality that occurred also indicated that the health level of the pig from the source was in poor condition. 3 serological positive pig farms are in the Isipatan area and 1 farm in Panongan. Whether related or not, we also found positive serological cow in Panongan area. Certainly, the presence of serological cow indicate a high probability of local transmission among cattle in Tangerang Regency. Conclusion, although with some limitation, our studies show that the possibility of introduction of Japanese GE virus from other region in Tangerang Regency through livestock trading and transport. Our study demonstrated the importance of livestock management data and seroprevalence study. To the best of knowledge, this research is the first Japanese encephalitis seroprevalence research conducted to livestock in Tangerang Regency. Our suggestion that we suggest collecting livestock management data in addition to any seroprevalence study. We also recommend the whole population sampling to ensure the potential of transmission of Japanese encephalitis in Tangerang Regency, as well as testing other animals such as chicken, dog, cat, and bird. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We go to the last video.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. Nice to meet you all. I'm sorry that I will share my screen to present about trypanosomiasis inlet in Banjarnegara district and potential impact for public health. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Triwijayanti from Banjarnegara Health Research and Development Unit. Trypanosomiasis is a disease that caused by trypanosoma, a protozoan parasite that has flagellum. This parasite have potential to cause emerging parasitic infection. Majority of zoonotic parasites are Trypanosoma brucei, that causing sleeping sickness in sub-Saharan Africa, and Trypanosoma cruzi that causing Chagas disease in Latin America. The other Trypanosoma species such as Trypanosoma louisi, Trypanosoma brucei, Trypanosoma congolens, and Trypanosoma evansi. Trypanosoma evansi, we call as Sura disease, is endemic in Southeast Asia. Endemic area for Trypanosoma in Indonesia are Bali, Sumbawa, Java, and Madura. An outbreak of Sura disease was reported in Banten in 2014. Several kinds of livestock were died. The largest Sura cases occurred in Sumba Island. It caused the death of around 2,000 livestock like buffalo, cattle, and the majority is horses. Serum sample of 24 farmers in Southwest Sumba collected during the Sura outbreak in 2012 showed 16.7% had antibodies to Trypanosoma evansi. We know that in Trypanosoma transmission involved factors like flies and flea. Also, reservoirs include rats. Trypanosoma louisi was reported in rats in many countries, like in Brazil. Trypanosoma louisi in rats in Ratus norvegicus is 21.7%, and in Egypt, infection of Trypanosoma in Ratus norvegicus is 15.8%. Research on trypanosomiasis in rat in Indonesia is still very limited, including in Banjarnegara district. The study was an observational design with a descriptive conducted in Banjarnegara in July until November 2020. Data collection was carried out by rat survey. Rats were captured, sedated with atropine and ketamsilacin, identified, and blood sample stored in EDTA tube. The blood sample were made thin blood smear, then stained with Giemsa and examined microscopically. Result of this study is we got 28 rats that positive trypanosoma, consists of 4 ratus tanisumi and 24 ratus norvegicus. So trypanosoma infection rate in Banjarnegara rats is 16.57%. Trypanosoma infection in Ratus norvegicus was 18.3%, and in Ratus tanisumi is 15.38%. None of the Suncus marinus capture positive for trypanosoma. Here we look at appearance of trypanosoma in thin blood smear with microscopically, we identified as Trypanosoma louisi. The other research in Indonesia about Trypanosoma louisi in rats in Banyuwangi, 1.67% rats, and in Surabaya, 7.9% rats infected by Trypanosoma louisi, but type of rats is unknown. The rat sample in Banyuwangi were obtained from residential areas, markets, and rice fields. Infection of Trypanosoma louisi were found in the blood smears of 10 Muridae animals, include 2 Bandicoda indica, 1 Ratus argentiventer, and 2 Ratus theomanicus. The other country was reported Trypanosoma louisi in rats, like in Egypt. Prevalence of Trypanosoma louisi among ratus is 51.2%. In Venezuela, in Ratus norvegicus, 6.3%. Ratus 31.1%. one research that involved with rats from Thailand and Cambodia showed that ratus talisumi, ratus exulent in 3 countries were infected by Trypanosoma lewisi. We look here, there's one difference that in Cambodia, 27.6% Suncus murinus were infected by Trypanosoma evansi. A new problem in health, public health is atypical human trypanosomiasis. There were 19 cases of atypical human trypanosomiasis caused animal trypanosome have been reported. There is a relationship between Trypanosoma lewisi and Xenopsila ceopis and Polypex spinulosa fleas in areas in South Africa. There were 9 cases of Trypanosoma lewisi infection in human in the world. They were reported from Malaysia, India, Gambia, and Thailand. Patients are often babies and clinical symptoms are generally mild. There were 3 cases of fever caused by Trypanosoma lewisi in infants. Trypanosoma lewisi were found in 2 of 10 Ratus norvegicus in India. This showed that zoonotic transmission from rats to human. In trials using Wistar against a variety of trypanocidal drugs, showed that no efficient drug to treat Trypanosoma lewisi. So far, there have been no reports of trypanosomiasis cases in humans in Indonesia. Result of the research in Southwest Sumba that showed 16.7% positive antibody in human have been supported with the other research. 38% seropositive Trypanosoma evansi in livestock. The high population of rats and the presence of Trypanosoma lewisi in rats, which is supported by poor sanitary hygiene conditions, needs to be watched out for because of the potential for human transmission. Conclusion of the research, mean of Trypanosoma infection in Banjarnegara district rats is 16.57%. The species that infected rats in Banjarnegara is Trypanosoma lewisi. There is a need to increase the awareness of this disease's transmission. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you for playing the video. Before we start the discussion, I would like to remind you again to fill in the attendance form the link is stated in the chat box. And we can start our question and answer session too, but please, you can also please send the question in the chat room with the format name of the presenter, your question, and your email. Here we already have 2 questions to the first presenters. I would choose, okay, the first one, Diana for Tri Ramadhani. Is the first presenter ready? Miss Tri Ramadhani? Are you there?
Sorry, okay.
Yeah, can you turn on your video or is it difficult for you?
Okay.
Yes, okay. The question is, what irradiation can be done in the adult phase? How is the effect on mating competitiveness?
Okay. Thank you very much for any question, Miss Diana. Adult mosquito were irradiated in the pupae, phase pupae, at a dose of 70 gray. Has
I'm sorry, Miss
competitiveness that is not significantly.
Sorry?
Yes?
Can you use microphone because your voice, I think, is not, the quality is not really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Adult mosquito were irradiated in the pupae phase at a dose of 70 gray has a value of mating competitiveness that is not significantly different from the male irradiated in the adult phase with the same dose. The presentation of adult emergency resulting from pupa irradiate was 10%. By handling the irradiate process AC and the male mosquitoes irradiate method in the pupa phase can be used as one on the application procedure insect technique to suppression the mosquito population.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ramadhani.
Okay.
Thank you. So it's only one question for a discussion. Sorry for Miss Wigati. Miss Wigati, it will be sent. The answer will be sent via email by the committee. So we continue to the second presenter. Muhammad Umar, Mr. Muhammad Umar, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you turn, yes. Okay, because we don't have questions here, I would like to ask you one question. You suspect that the GE antibody in the reactive pig serum was inherited from their sow before imported from outside the Tangerang district. So do you know where do the farmers usually import the pigs from?
Yeah, according to our questionnaire, we asked the owner of the farm where they get the piglet, and there's most of them are coming from Solo. Yeah, most of them coming from Solo, and the second one coming from Jambi. And the positive one is all from Solo, and because there are no literature saying that this area with positive endemic JA endemic in cattle I'm sorry, in pig. We don't know. There are no literature saying that Indonesia has several region that endemic endemic in pig. It's Solo, from Solo mostly.
Okay, that's interesting. I live near Solo, so there will be GE there. I live in Jogja, so okay. Thank you, Mr. Umar. I thought, it was maybe from outside Indonesia because pig is not really common, in Indonesia. So we continue to the third presenter. Actually, we already have another question for Miss Ramadhani here, but sorry, Miss Nur, please state your email in the chat box and it will be sent to you, the answers, because we only choose one answer for one presenter and one question for one presenter. So the last presenter to Miss Triwijayanti. Are you there?
Okay, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So there is no question here, so I will like to ask you, Trypanosoma malariae has been considered as a non-pathogenic natural pathogen in mice, but in the recent years it has been reported in humans. So you said it's only fever and mild signs, and I'm wondering what kind of mild signs in humans usually happens. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, Mrs. Amanda. I'm sorry, Mrs. Astrid. Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay, I think from the previously literature said that humans have a polyprotein L1, yeah, that have a trypanocidal activity. It may be the reason why in human majority it's a mild symptom.
Okay, so you know what kind of mild symptoms? Like
maybe here in the other country with outside by Southeast Asia, maybe it just I think it's likely headaches, maybe like that. That no specific characteristic symptom.
Okay, so only headache and fever. Okay,
Yes,
thank you, Miss Triwijayanti.
Okay, thank you.
We have also a question here from Saiful, but sorry, Mr. Saiful, it's only one question, so Ms. Triwijayanti will answer you through email. Okay, we continue to the second session. I'd like to call to three presenters. The first presenter with paper ID 38120, the pattern of vector control in malaria, endemic areas of Central Java province by Mr. Wigati Marsongko, age 14. And next, 125, oral rabies vaccination, the new hope of rabies eradication in Indonesia by Wahid Fahri Hussein, age 15. And then the last video will be 132, seroprevalence of Jones disease in selected goat farms in Tarlac, Philippines using enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay test by Lavina Gracia Ramirez, age 16. So please, the co-host to play the video. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, we would like to present our research about the pattern of vector control in malaria endemic areas of Central Java province. Vector-borne disease are still a public health problem both in rural and urban areas. In Indonesia, there were 57 high endemic areas of malaria. Target and indicators to achieve national malaria elimination in 2030 are no more indigenous cases of malaria transmission for 3 years, respectively. The elimination carry out are early discovery, appropriate treatment, strengthening migration surveillance, surveillance of vector breeding sites, active case finding through blood survey, and strengthening of referral hospitals. Efforts to achieve malaria elimination have encountered many obstacles in various areas such as lack of health workers, in absence of local regulation and supporting network, also community involvement. To ensure that malaria cases remain low and do not increase again, also to support the acceleration of malaria elimination, a study on the pattern of malaria vector control in malaria endemic areas in Central Java has been conducted. The research was conducted from August to December 2016 in Kulon Progo, Magelang, Purworejo, and Pati Health Offices District through reports and articles related to malaria vector control patterns in context to malaria elimination in Central Java. Here are the maps of malaria risk in Southeast Asia and South Asia, which is Indonesia. Malaria cases still high. On the results we tried to describe, some malaria vector control was carried out in Pati, Magelang, Purworejo, and Kulon Progo district from the year 2011 to 2015. Year 2015, action of malaria vector control. Kulon Progo distributed insecticide-treated bed nets, larvae fish breeding in water bodies, and using of mosquito repellent. Purworejo distributed insecticide-treated bed nets and indoor residual spraying. Magelang distributed insecticide-treated bed nets. Pati had no efforts to control malaria. The year 2014, action of malaria vector control. Kulon Progo distributed insecticide-treated bed nets. To use mosquito repellent when did activities outside and spread larvicides onto mosquito breeding site. Purworejo distributed insecticide-treated bed nets and indoor residue spraying. Magelang distributed insecticide-treated bed nets. Pati had no efforts to control malaria. Year 2013, action of malaria vector control. Kulon Progo distributed insecticide-treated bed nets and indoor residue spraying. Purworejo distributed insecticide-treated bed nets, indoor residue spraying, and larvae fish breeding. Magelang distributed insecticide-treated bed nets. Pati had no efforts to control malaria. The year 2012, action of malaria vector control. Kulon Progo distributed insecticide-treated bed nets and indoor residue spraying. Purworejo distributed insecticide-treated bed nets, indoor residue spraying. Magelang distributed insecticide-treated bed nets, and Pati had no efforts to control malaria. The year 2011, action of malaria vector control. Kulon Progo distributed insecticide-treated bed nets and indoor residue spraying. Purworejo distributed insecticide-treated bed nets, indoor residue spraying. Magelang distributed insecticide-treated bed nets, and Pati had no efforts to control malaria. In Pati, malaria were imports from an outside areas and had no effective control carried out from 2011 to 2015. Just only disease surveillance was active. There are some mosquitoes that becoming suspect of malaria vector species in Kulon Progo, Purworejo, Magelang, and Pati, such as Anopheles aconitus, Anopheles barbarostris, Anopheles maculatus, Anopheles balabacensis, Anopheles onicus, Anopheles pictus, and Anopheles fagus. Here the map about the distribution of vector malaria in Indonesia. This is the graphic about malaria control program in Pati, Magelang, Purworejo, Kulon Progo in 2015, which is Purworejo used indoor residual spraying was high. And this is the graphic about malaria cases per person in Pati, Magelang, Purworejo, Kulon Progo in 2015, which is Purworejo, malaria cases per person still high. Malaria control policies were implemented based on the regulation of Ministry of Health, which were vector control programs with an action to reduce vector population. One of recommended vector control methods was integrated vector control using a combination of several vector control, which carry out based on principles of secureness and effectiveness of implementation. Malaria vector control efforts were did before peak of malaria transmission can use one or more combinations, physical and mechanical control, controlling by using biotic agent, chemical control efforts. There were some gaps in policy of malaria vector control by government, so it becoming resulting in different malaria situation. Based on data obtained by the health office, a policy was needed to accelerate the elimination of malaria, including laws and regulations that supported efforts to eliminate malaria, regional regulation on exceptions of the cure, vector control relating to the environment, timely budgets, and cross-sectoral malaria control. Malaria control is unlikely to achieve optimal results if it didn't involve cross-sectoral support. A cross-sectoral meeting of non-governmental organizations to discuss information findings from surveillance analysis was necessary, as well as to build partnerships in prevention of malaria. The conclusion. The pattern of malaria vector control in Kulon Progo, Magelang, Purworejo, and Pati district varies based on regional malaria vector control policies. Malaria vector control policies depends on laws and regulation, local regulations, budgets, and cross-sectoral support. Improving malaria control through regional regulations and strengthening existing regulations. Guidelines for vector control in each district are based on local specific and areas coverage in order to be effective and strengthen on malaria vector and cases. I think that's all our presentation.
Thank you for the first video. Continue to the second video. Please, the co-host. Yeah.
Dr. Febi Purwosusena from the Directorate of Animal Health, Ministry of Agriculture. I'd like to use this opportunity in this ICAVESS International Conference to discuss the oral rabies vaccination. My name is Wahid Fahri Hussein from FAO Indonesia. During this presentation, we will discuss the overview of rabies in Indonesia, the urgency of ORV in Indonesia, why ORV, and the consideration factors for ORV implementation in Indonesia. As we know, rabies has had long history in Indonesia for over a century after the first rabies case was reported. In the last 15 years, newly infected islands have emerged, such as Bali, Nias, Dawera, and Sumbawa. Now, almost 80% of provinces in Indonesia have been declared infected by rabies. Indonesia is committed to eliminate rabies by 2030. And to achieve this target, mass dog vaccination has been chosen to be the main measure to control rabies in Indonesia with several methods: the mobile static points, the door-to-door vaccination, and the capture vaccinate release. On Flores Island, the mass dog vaccination program, together with the integrated bite case management, could significantly increase the number of vaccinated dogs. However, the vaccination coverage has not achieved the minimum requirement as there were limitations in vaccinating free-roaming dogs and funding constraints. In Bali Island, the central and provincial government, with technical support from FAO, have implemented a massive mass dog vaccination program since 2011 and achieved more than 70% vaccination coverage, which significantly reduced the incidence of rabies both in human and animal from 2011 to 2013. However, due to a range of factors, including funding constraints and the failure to use an internationally certified vaccine, the trend reversed in 2014. Following this trend, augmented rabies control efforts by provincial authorities, the central government, and FAO achieved the significant reduction of rabid animal cases from more than 500 to around 90 cases. Nevertheless, the trend reversed again in 2018. It's been reported that the main challenge to rabies elimination was the large percentage of free-roaming dogs, even though almost all of them had an owner. It implicates the difficulty to achieve an appropriate vaccination coverage as well as to maintain it. ORV has been found successful in achieving high vaccination coverage in the free-roaming dogs in several countries, such as in India and the Philippines. In Haiti, the ORV method was tried to be combined with the DDV and compared with other combinations. This table shows that although the combination of ORV and DDV only vaccinated around 50% of free-roaming dogs, this combination can reach almost 80% of the whole population. ORV concept has three pillars for its success, which are the vaccine, bait, and distribution system. Before including the ORV and routine mass dog vaccination in Indonesia, we need to consider several factors which are very much related to these pillars: safety, efficacy, cost effectiveness, and social culture. Safety is known as the main issue why ORV usage in Indonesia is still in doubt. However, based on the current report, only a very few adverse events without any epidemiological impact happened. The World Health Organization, WHO, has recommended that oral rabies vaccine should be safe for humans, targeted species, and other non-target species that are expected to be attracted by the bait, so that the public should not be worried about oral rabies vaccines since it has gone through a rigorous selection process. Another important factor is the assessment of vaccine efficacy. In 2007, only 2 strains of oral vaccine viruses that have been recommended by WHO, the SAG2 and the VRG strains. However, to date, there have been more options for the safe and efficacious strains of oral rabies vaccine as shown in this table. In Indonesia, an immunogenicity study of oral rabies vaccine as a part of efficacy assessment was conducted in a laboratory setting. This study showed that the antibody titer developed slowly but persisted longer than the parenteral vaccines. The next factor is the cost effectiveness of the ORV. It's been shown in a study in Goa, India, that the fixed operational cost of CVR was 4 times higher than ORV. Indeed, the oral rabies vaccine has a relatively higher price per dose than the parenteral ones. However, if it is accounted into the overall cost per dog vaccinated, ORV was slightly lower than CVR. In a study in Haiti, the additional of ORV as a complementary component of dog vaccination program has increased vaccinator efficiency and make the overall program more cost effective. From facts and study results related to the 3 main factors mentioned, it's shown that the use of ORV as additional tools for controlling rabies in Indonesia is promising and would be beneficial to achieve the vaccination coverage target. Nevertheless, the prudent use of ORV should be in place in become the basis of its usage. The last factor is the socio-cultural condition of the community, which plays an essential role in the success of ORV program, as it will affect the identification of a bait that will be used. In Indonesia, a study of bait acceptance was conducted in Flores and showed that the locally made fish bait was significantly preferred by the local dogs. To conclude, the ORV strategy can be a supplementary tool to the traditional mass dog vaccination to increase vaccination coverage and herd immunity to interrupt the rabies virus transmission cycle with more cost-effective way. RV offers the possibility to reach the inaccessible free-roaming dogs populations, while pets and community dogs that can be restrained can be vaccinated parenterally. There are several factors that need to be considered to the inclusion of ORV in routine mass dog vaccination program in Indonesia: safety, efficacy, cost effectiveness, and socio-cultural condition of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. So we go to the last video, please. Yeah.
Good day, everyone. It is a privilege to be part of this first international conference of Advanced Veterinary Science and Technologies for Sustainable Development virtual conference. In behalf of my co-researchers, I am Dr. Lavina Gracia M. Ramirez, who will be presenting our humble research entitled Zero Prevalence of Fecal Disease in Selected Goat Farms in Tarlac, Philippines, using enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay test. Goats are one of the most common farm animals raised in the Philippines. The demand for goat meat and milk have found a niche in the market and relatively increases in time. Goat production require low capital investment that suits the smallhold farm condition. They multiply fast and possess a small risk compared to other livestock animals. However, there are risks of diseases that can affect goats, and one of which is the Mycobacterium paratuberculosis, or also known as Johns disease. This is caused by Mycobacterium avium subspecies paratuberculosis. It manifests in enteric infections with a long incubation period and progressively worsening granulomatous infiltration of the small and large intestines, leading to weight loss and death. This is also economically significant in farm cattle, goats, and sheep. In goats, Johns disease is subclinical and infected animals are hard to treat. Thus, a reliable, rapid, less expensive test that can be used in confirming clinical as well as subclinical disease of MAP in goats is needed to avoid severe economic impact of infected herd. The Elisa test is the most commonly used diagnostic test for Johns disease next to polymerase change reactions. It is rapid, less expensive, works well in confirming clinical cases of Johns disease, as well as to detect subclinical infected goats. Although the sensitivity of ELISA is less, which is 64%, the specificity is about 98 to 100%. In Tarlac, goat paratuberculosis in both upgraded and native breeds has no clear record yet, hence this study. This research aimed to determine the seroprevalence of Johns disease in goats using ELISA assay test. Also, to relate the results of the ELISA test to the physical examination of the individual animal, and obtained results will be used to establish record of the herd as baseline for Johns disease in selected goat farms in Tarlac. There were 2 farms identified, and 93 goats, regardless of age, sex, and breed, were randomly selected. They were all subjected to physical examinations, collected with blood via jugular venipuncture, and all obtained blood were transported into the TAU Artificial Insemination Center for ELISA procedure. So for the ELISA procedures, all blood collected were centrifuged to obtain clear serum. So during centrifugation, all reagents were prepared and acclimatized under room temperature. All the test samples were pre-diluted with dilution buffer and incubated for 2 hours. Afterward, pre-diluted samples were transferred on the ELISA antigen-coated plate, mixed thoroughly but gently, and then incubated again under room temperature for 45 minutes. After incubation, they were subjected for washing using the ELISA washer 5 times. And then after, these test samples were added with conjugates. Again, they were mixed thoroughly but gently and then incubated again under room temperature for another 30 minutes. Afterwards, they were also subjected to washing, 3 times using the ELISA washer. Then after, addition of substrate to test sera were done. And then another incubation were conducted for about 10 minutes under room temperature. Afterwards, a stop solution were dispensed to each test serum and formation of color reaction were observed. To quantify the results of these colorimetric observations, they were all subjected for reading using the ELISA reader. The ELISA result was based on the value of the SP ratio percentage of the serum indicated in the ELISA kit. The negative result is indicated if the SP ratio is at least 45% or less. Positive result is 55% more than, and suspects between 45 to 55%. All the gathered data were statistically analyzed using percentage analysis and discussed in a descriptive manner. So table 1 shows a summary of the physical examination findings and ELISA test results. So in this presentation, there were 60 animals found apparently healthy and 33 animals found with different health conditions, which were manifested as coughing, colds with nasal discharges, and watery diarrhea. The 2 suspected animals were found to be manifested with diarrhea, cough, and with mucous discharges. Table 2 shows the percentage summary of ELISA test results from selected farms in Tarlac, Philippines. So this data shows that the disease prevalence of MAP from the 2 selected farms in Tarlac was 0%. However, there were 2 suspects identified. The suspects are potential carriers and might be infected with the disease. The results also entail having previous exposure to the said disease encountered from other farms where they were obtained, or that the recipient farm of these suspects may have low-grade detection of the said disease, since the selected farms have no recent testing of Young's disease conducted. So this figure shows the color reaction of the controls and samples after the addition of reagents. All the yellow color indicates that the target protein might be present. So in conclusion, seroprevalence of Young's disease among goat population selected small ruminant farms in Tarlac is 0%. However, there were 2 suspects found, which can be potential sources of the disease. At the same time, the physical examination findings of suspects support the results of ELISA, whereas suspects were unhealthy since they had diarrhea, mucous nasal discharges, and coughing. Also, ELISA test kit is a reliable, less expensive testing tool to detect MAP with a specificity of 98%. Thus, the results obtained are a good baseline data for cases of Caprine-Hiones disease in the province of Tarlac. The researcher also recommended retesting of suspect to be able to confirm the status of the animal, whether positive or negative with the disease. Also, routine herd serological testing should be done, where other confirmatory tests, such as molecular tests, can be supplemented. And most importantly, good management practice should be upheld at all times in the farm, especially on the proper segregation or culling of seropositive animals, as well as the promoting strict biosecurity to minimize the spread or transmission, if not prevent the entry of infection in the herd. I guess that's my last presentations. I would like to thank all the group. Would like to thank or express their gratitude to the TAU for the for giving us the chance to conduct this research, and also to those owners of goat farms who willingly open their property for examinations. For that, thank you very much and good day.
Thank you. So thank you for playing the video. Before we start the discussion, I would like to remind you again that you can already fill in the attendance form in the chat box. And please ask the question in the chat room with the format, the name of presenter, your question, and your email. So we already have 2 questions here, but it's for Wahid. So we will just start with Ms. Wigati. Since there's no questions in the chat box, I will ask you. You say that malaria is always present in Central Java, and it because of differences in vector control. Yeah. And you said that it has to be a cross-cultural, cross-sectoral solution. And what is your next step? I mean, because they have like different regulations, different budget, different priorities. What is your next step for after this study? Will you inform the government and the non-government organization to tackle the malaria control, or what will be your step after this? Thank you. Sorry, Ms. Wigati, I cannot hear you. No, still cannot. Or maybe you can not use the mic, or just not using the microphone. Maybe it can be because I cannot hear you. Okay, so no, maybe you can just plug your microphone out. Just use the speaker, not using the headset. No, still not. Oh, no, still not. Okay, maybe while we wait for Ms. Wigati, we can continue for the second presenter. There here already 2 questions to Mr. Wahid. Mr. Wahid, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, can you turn on your video?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
So here we already have 2 questions.
Okay,
I will choose by the questions by Mr. Shaiful. So he asked, how many % efficacy of 4 oral vaccine rabies, SEC2, VRG, ONRAB, SPBN, gas that you mentioned before? Okay, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you for the question, Dr. Shaiful Rizal. And for the efficacy of each strain, what is clear that it is above the standard value, especially those who recommend by WHO. However, to be honest, I don't memorize the number right now. I promise to send the journal to you via your email. But as I understand that those strains that I presented before, it is recommended already by WHO. That means that the efficacy is not an issue again for those strains. Thank you. I hope it's clear.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wahid. So we continue to the third presenters to... Oh, sorry for Ms. Dini. Mr. Wahid will answer you via email. And for the third presenter, Ms. Lavina Gracia. Are you there, Ms. Lavina?
Hello. Yes, good afternoon.
Hello.
I just unmuted.
Yeah, good afternoon.
My mouthpiece. Thank you.
Okay, this is from Ulinda. She asked, when negative results from Elisa, but there is suspect clinical appearance of Jones disease, what other tests can be done to diagnose it?
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, thank you for that question. Actually, for the second time that we're going to test for that particular suspected animal, we have not done that because the animal was already disposed. So we don't have time to recheck for the status of those suspected. But then we can use other tests if we could supplement. That's what I mentioned earlier. You can use molecular if you want to be direct on that particular antibody. At the same time, another ELISA test for that false positive. So that can be also that. And of course, samples other than the serum also can be used to detect further if the presence of that particular organism is in that particular animal.
Okay, thank you, Miss Lavina.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we already have other question for you, but I think you can answer it via emails to run out
Yes,
of
ma'am.
time.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank you. And for Miss Wigati, can you already talk now? Miss Wigati, are you there? Yes. Hello? Oh, okay, still not. So maybe you can just answer it in the chat box, maybe. Okay, thank you. So we continue to the session 2 today, session 3, sorry. I would like to remind you again that you can already ask questions while watching the videos. So please send the question in the chat room with the format name of the presenter, your question, and your email. So I'd like to call our 3 presenters to present their work. The presenters are first paper ID 38137, Eco Health Approach in Anticipating Japanese Encephalitis in Tulung Agung District, East Java Province by Bina Ikawati A17. And then the second video will be 38187, Case Control Study, Risk Factors and its Association of Anthrax in South Sulawesi and West Sulawesi Province, Indonesia by Dini Yudianingtyas, 18. And the third presenter, because the A19 is not here yet, we'll just skip him and we continue to the A20, the 38190, molecular screening for Chlamydia speciosa and Salmonella speciosa for fecal sample of Sparrows, Passer domesticus in Yogyakarta, Indonesia by Marla Anggita, A20. Okay, please the co-host to play the video.
Udah session ketiga.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, all ladies and gentlemen. I am Bina Ikawati from Banjarnegara Health Research and Development Unit, National Institute of Health Research and Development Unit, Republic of Indonesia. I am so much honored to be able to speak on behalf of ICAVESS. In this opportunity, I would like to share our research about eco-health approach in anticipating Japanese encephalitis in Tulung Agung District, East Java Province. As introduction, Japanese encephalitis is a disease caused by Japanese encephalitis virus, Flavivirus group, the Flaviviridae family. The role of pig in JA transmission, pigs are known to be the best reservoir for the JA virus to reproduce. And then mosquito have a role as vector in JA. Tulung Agung District is one of the districts in East Java with the highest number of pig farms. Human and pig ratio in Tulung Agung is getting smaller from 333 in 2010 to 105 in 2030. EcoHealth is a system that's on and approaching to promoting health and well-being that focus on social and ecological or environmental interaction. This study aims to identify environmental conditions that support JA transmission and conceptualize an eco-health approach that can be used to eliminate or minimize potential transmission of JA. the research method using the eco-health approach. This research was carried out by observing local environmental conditions in April until November 2016 and searching for supporting literature that refers to human health supporting ecosystem services. Human health supporting ecosystem services consists of three major components, namely buffering hazard, sustaining capacity, and promoting health. The analysis was carried out descriptively. Data from the Animal Husbandry Service of Tulungagung District in 2015 stated that there were 32 pig farms. In Ngantru Subdistrict, 12 pig farm. In Kedungwaru Subdistrict, 3 pig farm. In Pagarwajo Subdistrict, 2 pig farm. In Ngunut Subdistrict, 12 pig farm. And in Sumbergempol Subdistrict, 3 pig farm. This is the map of Tulungagung District. This is the area and then the location, and Tulungagung District is 94.83% of this area below 500 meters above sea level. And there are 32 rivers in Tulungagung District, and in Ngunut Subdistrict there is the Brantas River. And the total population in 2018 is more than 1 million. And this is the map of contour, rice field, and river in Tulungagung District. The Ngunut Subdistrict is rice field area, and the location of this subdistrict in lowland area. This is the eco-health supporting component in anticipating of JA in Tulungagung District. From buffering hazard, and that existence of standing water, empty pond on the farm as a factor habitat, and then existence of the JA factor, existence of pig as JA reservoir and rice field. The output is the focus of the rich area is in Ngunut Subdistrict, and sustaining capacity from identification we know that healthy and productive livestock or agricultural policies. And the output that create a plan for prevention effort, close sewage disposal facilities, pull in the cattle pen given catfish, stagnant water in the rainy season in port or wild. Promoting health, promote approach to agricultural or livestock extension, environmental health extension, and government and community leaders to close sewage disposal, pull in the cattle pen with given catfish or another fish that can live in such condition, and then stagnant water in the rainy season in is port or field. Promotion effort to implementation. This is the picture of stagnant water in open sewage disposal around housing, and then this is the empty pond on the farm, and this is the one of pig farm in Ngunut Subdistrict. The condition of the farm and settlement in the Ngunut area are puddles, spawn on the farm, the presence of mosquito that are potential factor of JA, namely Kulek visnui and Kulek fasciatus. Study by Ratna, which has successfully isolated the virus from 4 species of vector mosquito, namely Kulek bitairhynchus, Kulek bitainiorhynchus, Kulek fasciatus, Anopheles kochi, and Almigeres supervatus in Semarang District, Central Java. And then the existence of pig based on survey in Indonesia in 2012 saw a JA infection rate of 14.2%. Study from J. Vidyastuti et al. Saw that 19.05% of the 63 sample examined JA reactive antibody in pigs in Ngunut and Kalidawir subdistrict. Infection in pig was higher, about 23.1%. And then study from Pramestuti et al. Shows that mosquito in the pig farm in Ngunut area was dominated by Anopheles vagus, about 53.4%, and then followed by Kulek Visnui, 14.2%, and Kulek Fasciatus, 12.7%. Although no JA positive test results were found in mosquito sample, the value of the human blood index showed that mosquito suck human blood is in the range of 0.3. Good animal husbandry practice are influenced by 4 things, namely animal welfare, safe animal feed, animal health, and healthy living conditions. Improve the environment can be carried out by constructing a closed disposal facility in residential and livestock area. In the pond, in the pig pen, fish that can survive in that place can be maintained, such as catfish. This concept must be continuously disseminated to breeders and community in settlement in Munut sub-district so that JA can be prevented. Pig breeder need to pay attention to the disease that exists in pig, including the possibility of transmitting this disease to humans. Conclusion, many ponds, stagnant water that can be a breeding habitat for mosquito. Also, there is a lot of stagnant water in the home environment, some that's from open sewerage canal. This place can be a habitat for Kulek sp. The existence of pig is also a risk factor for JA transmission in Tulungagung. Recommendation: environmental improvement can be done by raising fish that are suitable for empty pond in area for pigs and chicken, like catfish, and then constructing closed sewage disposal in residential and livestock area. Thank you and have a good day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yeah, continue to video 2, second video.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here at the first international conference for advanced veterinary science and technologies for sustainable development. My name is Lini Wahyudian Tias. I'm a graduate student of Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Universitas Gadjah Mada, Yogyakarta. The title of my study is Case Control Study, Risk Factor and its Association of Anthrax in South Sulawesi and West Sulawesi provinces in Indonesia. Anthrax, as you may know, is contagious zoonotic disease caused by Bacillus anthracis, a gram-positive rod-shaped and spore-forming bacteria. Today, 14 provinces in Indonesia are endemic for anthrax, and regarding on Ministry of Agriculture of Republic Indonesia regulation, this disease is categorized as one of strategic animal disease in Indonesia. In Sulawesi Island, mainly in South Sulawesi and Gorontalo Province, anthrax cases in livestock occur almost every year. The objective of this study was to identify and define potential risk factors associated to anthrax outbreak in South Sulawesi and West Sulawesi Province, the red area inside the red circle. The study was conducted from March to October 2019. There were 7 districts in South Sulawesi Province and 1 district in West Sulawesi Province enrolled in the study. This is a retrospective case control study. Epidemiology unit is formed. Case form was formed with anthrax history and has laboratory confirmation from the ICAVESS during 2016 until 2018 period. Control form was listed form with no history anthrax case at about the same time during that period. Sample size were calculated using unmatched case control study approach. Primary data obtained from direct interview and field observation using semi-structured questionnaire. Respondents were the farmer. Secondary data for anthrax laboratory confirmation obtained from the ICAVESS database. Data analysis performed by Statistic 8 program. Total sample collected were 245 samples. 222 samples were continued to analyze, consists of 81 case and 141 control. This is the characteristics of farmer, consists of experience, age, sex, education, and occupation. This is the characteristics of farm, consists of 22 variables, mainly based on the farming management and environment aspect. This variable will continue to analyze using odds ratio and chi-square. This is the result from the chi-square and odds ratio calculation. we have 13 variable predictors that has association with anthrax outbreak in South Sulawesi and West Sulawesi province. The highest odds ratio were disposal prescription, no treatment and or insufficient treatment of disposal place or burial site, the location of disposal that near or around animal house. Anthrax disease in South Sulawesi and West Sulawesi province has political value and psychology effect beside of the health and economic impact. Some of case and control respondent unwilling to enroll in the study. Animal trader or middleman has important contribution. They are available in all district or even sub-district. They have economic aspect for selling and slaughtering of sick or infected and dying livestock for most all of condition, not only for anthrax incidents, probably a strong potential cause and contributed to disease distribution. They also have a main role for animal replacement, cheaper price for sick animal, probably at incubation period. So the new animal will be there as soon as they arrive, 24 until 72 hours prior arrival. Some farmer had plantation garden and forest has their livestock feed resource. Therefore, in some cases, that livestock found at the same place as the livestock graze and not possible to make some treatment like spray or burn the burial site. Some farmers say that they did not have any disinfection or even bury their livestock and the plantation garden and forest. So it will contaminate the environment for a long term. Disposal expression and treatment are important points regarding to anthrax ecology because of the natural capability of bacteria spore to persist and dormant at the environment. We call it incubator area, which can sustain their form until several decades. Farming system, sharing, feeding, pasture, and drinking water of livestock increase the risk of infection and contamination rate of anthrax disease. There are no signs of the disposal or burial site, and the same pastures they use for livestock grazing until now. The suitable environment at the pasture and drinking water source will be the same result as the disposal place as contaminated area of Bacillus anthracis. Community animal slaughtering practice was mentioned by 61 respondents and become one of risk factors that increase the possibility of gastrointestinal anthrax case. This practice will lead into spore distribution and potential change for zoonotic of anthrax. There was some human cutaneous anthrax related to this anthrax study during period 2016 until 2018. Anthrax control program in Indonesia is using vaccination strategy. This program using local vaccine, anthrax produced by Vetma, and proven as effective strategy to prevent and control the disease. For example, since the first outbreak in 2016 in Pulau district, there was no anthrax report until now. The animal health authorities in provincial and district level had special consideration for the disease. Every year, they have routine anthrax vaccination program, divided their anthrax area into 4 vaccination ring area. Even in 2017, they have 5 vaccination rings area. The limitation of this study was in our sampling technique that some owners refused to be interviewed because they were busy or not interested to elaborate in the study. Another invitation included those inherent to all retrospective studies that are information based on the subjectivity for the respondent that may have been inaccurate or incomplete because of recall bias. This is the conclusion. Risk factor that associated to anthrax disease in South Sulawesi and West Sulawesi provinces identified mainly related to the farming management system, disposal practice, sick animal movement, and slaughtering. The finding of this study will be informed to central and local government as valuable input consideration for anthrax control disease prevention program and monitoring in Sulawesi. We recommend that future study regarding the awareness and practice toward anthrax among farmer and animal trader should be conducted for effective intervention and strategy of anthrax control disease program in Indonesia, particularly in West and South Sulawesi. Central government, local government, and related stakeholders should be held close collaboration to minimize the risk of anthrax spreading, distribution, and incidents to other areas in West Sulawesi and South Sulawesi province. We thank the Agency for Agriculture, Extension, and Human Resources Department, Ministry of Agriculture of the Republic of Indonesia for funding on domestic scholarship. We thank to both animal health and livestock disease in South Sulawesi and West Sulawesi provinces and all district and city local government for the research permission. The field visit activities also supported by all animal health and livestock dinas officer and village or sub-village local officer in Makassar, Maros, Goa Takalar, Bone, Sidenrapang, Pinrang, and Polewali Mandar. This is some documentation, start from questionnaire validation until the field activity, and also some disposal place, picture, the drinking water source, and the treatment on burial site. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you. For the next video, because the A19 already here, sorry for 820, Miss Marla. We will just continue as the order. So the A19 will be for the next video with the paper ID 188, surveillance of antimicrobial susceptibility test on several methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus derived from human medical cases by Dion Adirista Dewananda, A19. So please, the co-host to play the video. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Dion Dewananda. I hope everybody is having a good day in this conference, and I would like to present our research paper which is entitled Surveillance of Antimicrobial Susceptibility Tests on Several Methicillin-Resistant Staphylococcus aureus Derived from Human Medical Cases. So our research team consists of me, Dr. Madarina Wasisa, Dr. Fajar Budi Lestari, Dr. Andani Eka Putra, and my supervisor, Professor Siti Isrina Octavia Salasia. Dr. Andani is from Universitas Andalas, Dr. Fajar is from Chulalongkorn University, and every other members are from Universitas Gadjah Mada. The background of this research is, of course, MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, also known as superbug with advanced antimicrobial resistances. This bacteria already became a problematic case in both human and veterinary medicine due to its increasingly resistance mechanism against antibiotics. So we always need to screen them to keep up with their resistances whenever we found an MRSA. So the purpose of this research was determining the antibiotic sensitivity levels on several MRSA isolated from human medical cases. And after that, we could then determine which antibiotic that are proven effective as an antibacterial agent for MRSA. And the method used on this research was a simple Kirby-Boyer test experimentation. There are 5 genetically proven MRSA which were retrieved from Universitas Andalas Medical Teaching Hospital, and the 6 types of commonly used antibiotics which were ampicillin, oxacillin, tetracycline, erythromycin, penicillin, and cefoxitin. And these are the result of the experiment. So there are 3 kinds of zone for evaluating this experiment. The first zone is a clear zone, and there are other zones known as blur zone. And the last one is when there isn't any zones which show that the bacteria is actually completely resistant against certain antibiotics. In this picture, it is very clear that some antibiotics showed some clear zones and other antibiotics showed some blur zones. And the zone was also consistent on every repetition that we had, which showed that the experiment are more likely to have similar variables in this research. And from that, we have several interesting findings. So most of the MRSA is actually resistant to 5 of 6 antibiotics used in the experiments. All of them were resistant against ampicillin, penicillin, and cefoxitin. And 4 out of 5 were resistant to erythromycin and oxacillin. The only sensitive antibiotics against these MRSAs is tetracycline, which was really interesting because that means the antibiotic with inhibiting translation mechanism was the most effective against MRSA. As we all know, Tetracycline is a short-acting antibiotic that inhibits bacterial growth by inhibiting translation. It binds to the 30S ribosomal subunit and prevents the amino acid tRNA from binding to the A site of the ribosome. It also binds to some extent to the 5S ribosomal subunit. So yeah, this short research concludes that based on the experiment performed, the research concludes that all 5 of Amerisa isolates are categorically resistant to ampicillin, penicillin, and cefoxitin. 4 out of 5 isolates were also resistant to erythromycin and oxacillin. It was also concluded that the only effective antibiotic used in the experiment against MRSA was tetracycline. So, it is highly recommended to further pursue their antimicrobial resistance evidences by using molecular evaluation techniques such as PCR or sequencing. And that's it for my presentation. Thank you very much. Boom.
Why with boom? Thank you very much. So we continue. Okay, before we start the discussion, I would like to remind you again to fill in the attendance form in the link in the chat box. And please send your question in the chat box as well with the format name of the presenter, your question, and your email. So here we don't have any questions, I think. So I'll just call our first presenter, Miss Bina Ekawati.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, because no one asked here, so I will ask you a question. It's very interesting journal because study because it's really related to One Health approach as well. So Eco Health approach involving the environmental aspects and with the humans as well. So it's really interesting. So in your opinion, what will you do after this by giving a policy brief to the people to change the regulation, or will you have another study to confirm or to add more facts about the collaboration of involving environmental and human and as well as the fish animals? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sastrin. Until now, we have no another study to follow up our research, but from our team, we will try to get secondary data in survey location to know even our brief accepted and run or no. We will use secondary data to know about the implementation of our suggestion from our brief. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dina. So we go to the next presenter, Ms. Dini Yudanintias. Are you there? Still don't have question here. Okay, since we don't have questions, I'm just wondering. While I read your abstract, you didn't put the study findings or your recommendation in your abstract, but you have it actually in your video. Why was it?
And at the first time, when I sent the abstract, the recommendation and the conclusion is still under review, so I didn't put it. So
okay. So you also said in your study that the participants' willingness to fill in the questionnaire is low. Is it? So what will you have like another study to like increase the participants of the questionnaire, or because then if the questionnaire is not many as expected, maybe the study is not as good as expected, right?
No, actually, that's the difficulty to conduct case control study, because we already have the list of the case, and we already collect the data for the control farm. So, and as you know, but unfortunately, I calculate the sample size using 90% of power. So probably because of the reduce of the sample size, probably my power of sample size only reduce until around 84%. So it's not much actually.
So it's still reliable.
Still reliable.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Ms. Dini. So we continue to the third presenter, Mr. Dion. Are you there? We already have one question here. Yeah. Can you turn on your video?
Hello?
Yes. So we already have one question for you in the chat box by Mr. Widodo. He asked if any patient with MRSA, what is tetracycline is antibiotic of choice for this patient?
I'm so sorry right now. I'm actually at the outside, but Mr. Widodo Suwito, thank you so much for the question. So our research found that tetracycline is actually effective against MRSA, right? But it is thought to be a reasonable alternative antibiotics given to MRSA patients. But actually, for MRSA infection, the gold standard treatment after some of the antibiotics used were resistant is actually vancomycin. So in this short research, we found that tetracycline was actually effective, but of course the gold standard on persistent MRSA infection is always vancomycin. So that is my answer. Thank you so much for the question. I'm really sorry for.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Dion. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Widodo, for the question. So that's all for session 1 until 3. So I will give the session 4 and 5 to Dr. Denny. Please, Dr. Denny, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sastrin, for the opportunity today. We would like go through to the fourth session. So after this, we have 3 presenters with the paper ID 38 and 190 with the title Molecular Screening for Chlamydia and Salmonella from Fecal Sample of Sparrows, Passer domesticus in Yogyakarta, Indonesia. And the second presenter with the paper ID 38 154 with the title Isolation, Identification, and Antimicrobial Sensitivity Test of Bacteria Isolated from the Rectal Swab of African Pygmy Hedgehog, Atelerix albiventris, and Javan porcupine, Hystrix javanica. And the third presenter with the paper ID 38 and 156 with the title Study on Parturicy of Beef Cows in Smallholder Farm, Stages, Placental Weight, and Placentomes. So I would remembering you that if you have a question, just write it down in the chat room directly. And right now, please, co-host, you can play the videos, the first videos in the fourth session. the session for. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marla Anggita, and I'm from Department of Microbiology, Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Universitas Gadjah Mada. Today, I would like to share my study with the title Molecular Screening for Chlamydia and Salmonella from fecal sample of sparrows in Yogyakarta, Indonesia. In this study, we also have Dr. Sidna Hartanto and also Dr. Okti Herawati. So the current pandemic issues in the world has made public attention to the various possibilities of wild animals as the important objects in the spread of zoonotic disease. In addition to mammals, wild birds are also considered as an important reservoir of some pathogen zoonosis. Several species of wild birds are known to act as reservoir for zoonotic agents such as Chlamydophila psittaci, avian influenza, coronavirus, enteropathogenic E. coli, and Salmonella. And the transmission of the disease occurs between the wild birds to other animals and humans through droplets of feces or nasal fluids. Salmonella and Chlamydia spread through contact with infected droppings and aerosol exposure to bacteria-contaminated feces. This study was aimed to detect Salmonella and Chlamydia from fecal sample of the sparrow birds, and also to know the prevalence of sparrows as the vectors of Salmonella and Chlamydia in Yogyakarta area, Indonesia. So this study was, we used 30 sparrow birds, and they were obtained from the bird hunter in Yogyakarta. The fresh fecal samples were collected and we extract the DNA using tool DNA isolation mini kit. And then the extracted DNA was amplified using PCR. And of course, this study has the ethical requirements for research in experimental animals from the Integrated Research and Testing Laboratory of Universitas Gadjah Mada. And after we got the PCR product, we then conduct the electrophoresis DNA. These some of the pictures from the study. Here we collect the stool samples from the sparrows, and then we put it on PBS, and then we extract the DNA from the stool samples, and then we PCR, and then we electrophoresis. So this is the product used in this study. For Salmonella, we have the target gene of INVA, and for the Chlamydia, we have OMPA as the target gene. And then this is the result. This is the visualization of amplified DNA. The picture A show the PCR product of 769 BPS here. And then here we can see the PCR product of 850 BPS. So from the total of 30 samples, we have the negative results for the NVA gene as much as 29, with the prevalence 3.3%. And for the OMPA, we have 9 negative result, so we have 70% prevalence. So the OMPA gene is a gene that encodes the major outer membrane protein, and the major outer membrane protein is a component of bacterial membranes that function as structural proteins in Chlamydia. And this MOMP, major outer membrane protein, is currently being developed as an antigenic component in making a chlamydia vaccine, replacing the use of all components of chlamydia bacteria in the current vaccine. There are currently 6 avian and 2 mammal types of OMPA gene, with the avian hosts are from cetacean birds, pigeons, ducks and geese, turkeys, pigeons, and other avian species. And the INVA gene became an international standard for detecting Salmonella at the genus level using clinical samples such as feces. The positive sample of the MOMP in initial PCR optimization show product result of 850 BPS. This study detected the MOMP of chlamydia in fecal samples of birds, although the birds showed no clinical symptoms of chlamydia infection. The percentage of Salmonella in sparrows in Yogyakarta is higher when compared to previous studies in various countries, except UK, which has a percentage of Salmonella in wild birds of 1.6%. And the research conducted by Avema and Cisco in 2016, they found the prevalence of 4.1% of Salmonella in wild birds, and Tizard in 2014 found the prevalence of Salmonella in captive raptors was 7.36%. The results showed that the wild birds can be the carrier of Salmonella and Chlamydia in the body and secreted through feces. The results is rarely observed, and the appearance of clinical symptoms is likely due to close contact with the source of transmission of disease or feces. And sparrows as reservoir for Salmonella and Chlamydia were expressed as carriage with no obvious disease manifestations. So the conclusion of this study showed the prevalence of Salmonella and Chlamydia from fecal sample of sparrows in Yogyakarta were 3.3% and 70% respectively. The sparrows without showing any clinical symptoms. Further research on the pathogens in wild birds that are abundant in Indonesia, especially in Yogyakarta region, is needed to determine variations in the types of zoonotic disease that are carried by wild birds. And the last, the evaluation and monitoring of the epidemiologic status of these pathogens among birds and humans is needed for applying prevent the transmission of zoonotic disease between. We would like to thank you to the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Universitas Gadjah Mada, for the support fund for this research through the Research Fund of Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Universitas Gadjah Mada. I would like to say thank you also for the ICAVESS committee to give me the opportunity to share our study in this international conference. And for the last, thank you for the audience to give me your attention during my presentation. Stay healthy and have a good day. Thank you.
Okay, we're going through to the next videos, the second videos. Please, co-host. Thank you.
Good afternoon, honorable audiences. My name is Astari Kelanahan Indiani, and I'm a veterinary co-assistant student from Universitas Gadjah Mada. I'm honored to be here in ICAVESS to present my research, which the title is Isolation, Identification, and Antimicrobial Sensitivity Test of Bacteria Isolated from the Rectal Swab of African Pygmy Hedgehog, or Atellaris albifrentris, and Sunda porcupine, or Strix javanica. In certain mammals, some of the hair is modified into spines, such as in hedgehog and porcupine. Atelarix albiventris, known as African pygmy hedgehog, is popular as a pet in Indonesia. Meanwhile, Hystrix javanica, known as Sunda porcupine, is one of Indonesian endemic animals. According to the regulation of the Minister of Environment and Forestry of the Republic of Indonesia, Hystrix javanica is a protected animal. Unfortunately, in some areas in Indonesia, especially Central Java and East Java, the Sunda porcupine is hunted to be sold and consumed for their meat. Atelarix albiventris as a pet and Hystrix javanica, which are known as animals that are being consumed, certainly have a close relationship with humans. People related to these animals, such as the owner or the breeders, have a great risk of being exposed to bacteria and other microorganisms through direct contact with these animals or their faces. So the purpose of this study is to isolate, identify, and test the antibiotic sensitivity of bacteria from the rectal swab of Atelarix albiventris and Hystrix javanica. In this research, we used 2 female Atelarix albiventris from the animal and ornamental plant market in Bantul and 1 female Hystrix javanica from community-owned farms in Tawangmangu, Central Java as the sample. The animals were in good health and there was no indication of any digestive system disturbance when the samples were taken. First of all, samples collection were done using small cotton swabs, then the samples being stored in the brain-heart infusion probe. The isolation process is being done by inoculating all samples on black agar plate and observing the cell morphology by the gram staining. After that, all samples are being cultured on selective media such as eosin, methylene blue agar, and McConkey agar. Continue with biochemical tests. Last, the bacteria identified is going through antibiotic sensitivity test, which was carried out using the Kirby-Boyer disk diffusion method. A total of 6 sample cultures from Atelarix albiventris and Hystrix javanica rectal swab were collected for this study. 4 sample cultures were obtained from Atelarix albiventris rectal swab samples, which are being coded as S1A, S2A, S1AN, and S2AN, while 2 samples were being collected from Hystrix javanica rectal swab samples, which are being coded as S3A and S3AN. The A stands for samples inoculated aerobically, while AN stands for samples that are being inoculated anaerobically. Based on the comparison of results on isolation and identification process with the literature, Escherichia coli was identified in 3 out of 4 Atelarix albiventris rectal swab samples, while Proteus mirabilis was identified in 1 out of 4 samples from Atelarix albiventris. The results of 2 samples from the rectal swab of Hystrix javanica were all Escherichia coli. So we can say that from the Atelarix albiventris rectal swab samples, the identified bacteria are 75% Escherichia coli and 25% Proteus mirabilis, while the identified bacteria from the Hystrix javanica rectal swab samples are 100% Escherichia coli. Next is the results on antibiotic sensitivity test. The results of antibiotic sensitivity test on 5 Escherichia coli isolates are showing 100% sensitivity to amikacin, amoxicillin, ampicillin, and rofloxacin, fosfomycin, kanamycin, chloramphenicol, streptomycin, tetracycline, and trimethoprim, and show 100% resistant to erythromycin and penicillin G. Meanwhile, 1 Proteus mirabilis isolate show sensitivity to amikacin, amoxicillin, ampicillin, kanamycin, and trimethoprim, and show intermediate sensitivity to enrofloxacin and resistant to erythromycin, fosfomycin, chloramphenicol, penicillin G, streptomycin, and tetracycline. Recent related study shows that the species of bacteria identified from the gastrointestinal tract of Erinaceus concolor, which come from the same family as Atelarix albiventris, are Escherichia coli, Proteus, Pseudomonas, Shigella, Yersinia, Salmonella, and Klebsiella. Another related study stated that the most identified bacteria from Eretizon dorsatum, which come from the same suborder as Sunda porcupine or Hystrix javanica, are bacteria originating from the order Bacteroideales, Clostridiales, Burkholdeриales, Corynebacteriales, Pseudomonadales, Erysipeloteles, Flavobacteriales, Enterobacteriales, Lactobacillus, and Ferromicrobiales. In this study, the results obtained are in accordance with this recent study because the bacteria identified from rectal swab of Athalaric salviventris are Escherichia coli and Proteus mirabilis, while the bacteria identified from the rectal swab of Vester javanica are Escherichia coli. Escherichia coli and Proteus mirabilis are bacteria belonging to the Enterobacteriaceae family. Differences in bacterial species identified from Athalaric salviventris and Escherichia javanica can be influenced by differences of the environment, differences of animal groups based on the type of food, and differences of feed given to the animals. Resistance of the identified Escherichia coli and Proteus mirabilis may occur due to inaccurate use of antibiotics and transfer of resistant factors through plasmid from environmental bacteria to the microflora. This study concluded that the bacteria in the Athalaric salviventris rectal swab were Escherichia coli and Proteus mirabilis, meanwhile the bacteria on the rectal swab of Vester javanica is Escherichia coli. Escherichia coli and Proteus mirabilis identified in the study were known to be resistant to several antibiotics. However, the advice that we can take from the study is humans who have a chance of direct contact with these animals and their faces should maintain proper sanitation and hygiene, for example, by washing their hands after doing the direct contact with the animals. This paper and the research behind it would not have been possible without the financial support from Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Universitas Gadjah Mada, also the guidance and support from the co-authors and the corresponding authors. Here are some references that I use, and all in all, it is with my hope that this study will benefit for veterinary medicine knowledge. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Good afternoon.
Okay, thank you. And then the third videos.
Okay, Assalamualaikum
Thank you, go host.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. I want to introduce myself. My name is Topas Wijaksono Priyo Junior. I'm from Department of Reproduction and Obstetric, Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Universitas Gadjah Mada, Indonesia. On behalf my senior researcher, Dr. Sri Gustari. Actually, in first ICAVESS, I want to presentation about study on parturition of beef cattle in smallholder farm, stage, placental wake, and placentum. Okay. In introduction, the symptom that may occur before due date was the change of pelvic ligament, increase of mammary glands, and edema in vulva. The symptoms are very useful as an aid in marking the presence of parturition, but the symptoms vary widely and cannot be used to predict the day of delivery. Lack of scientific data on the length of parturition stage, placental wake, and the number of placentum in Peranakan Ongol or PO beef cattle, Simmental Peranakan Ongol or Simpo, and Limousin Peranakan Ongol or Limpo, bred in Yogyakarta province. Actually, Simpo and Limpo are crossbreed cattle, which is in some way their reproductive activity different from the original breed or PO. And then to provide an overview for reproductive science regarding to the length of the stage of labor, the number of placentum and the weight of placenta in PO, Simpo, Limpo cattle on smallholder farms. In material method, the location from local farmer in special region of Yogyakarta province. The sample is 32 beef cattle, 22 PO, 7 Simpo, and 4 Limpo, with at least 9 months of pregnant condition. Survey and observation we are conducted for 24 hours per day to the monitor of length parturition stadium. Data collection, duration of each stage, placental weight, also the number of placentum we are collecting, then analyze descriptively. Okay, this is a picture about the placentum. Okay, result and discussion. The result in table 1. Table 1 is the average time of parturition stage of PO, Simpo, Limpo cattle in Yogyakarta. Especially in stage 1, PO, 73.7 hours, Simpo 44.5 hours, and Limpo 62.9 hours. Stage 2, 58.1 minutes. Simple 78.7 minutes. Limpo 24.5 minutes. In stage 3, 4.3 hours. Simple 4.8 hours. And Limpo 3.5 hours. Our result, we are not in agreement with previous finding, which was first stage of parturition take about 6 until 12 hours, 2 until 6 hours, 28.5 hours. In contrast with our result, the average time of second start of parturition was 120 until 360 minutes. 30 until 60 minutes, 17 minutes. Our findings were also different with previous study. Third stage of parturition usually take time 30 minutes and until 8 hours, 6 until 12 hours, and 6 until 8 hours. The factor that may affect the stadium of parturition were physical factor, hormone, nutrition, and breed. Fetal size was included as physical factor. The hormonal factor were the increasing of estrogen hormone, decreasing of progesterone hormone, increasing of prostaglandin, oxytocin, and relaxin hormone. Nutrition intake such as protein, fat, and carbohydrate, and mineral are affecting uterus contraction during parturition. Okay, this is a result in table 2. Table 2 about the average of placental weight in placenta of PO, SIMPO, and LIMPO cattle in Yogyakarta province. Especially in placental weight, PO 4.1 kilogram and SIMPO 3.6 kilogram. The placenta PO 92.5 pieces, SIMPO 9 pieces. Several literature state the variety number of placentum in cattle were 70 until 120 pieces, 75 until 120 pieces, and 120 pieces. Breed and nutrition will play in role of affecting the number of placentum shape. Research evidence show that there is a change in placentum conformation in ruminant in response to change in nutritional intake, so that fetal development in maintained normally. In other ruminant, namely sheep, nutritional intake at the beginning and the middle pregnancy greatly affect the number, size, and shape of placentum. If nutrition at the beginning and the middle pregnancy is lacking, the number of placenta will decrease, but their size and shape will increase. It has been confirmed that nutrition intake affect the placentum number in sheep and cattle. Okay, in the last conclusion, the first one, the average of first stage parturition in PO was longer than SIMPO and LIMPO. Meanwhile, the average of second stage and third stage parturition in SIMPO was longer than PO and LIMPO. The second one, in addition, the average of placenta weight and PO was heavier than SIMPO and LIMPO cow. The average number of placentum in LIMPO was higher than PO and SIMPO cattle. Okay, this is my presentation. I say thank you.
Okay, thank you. So right now we're going through to the Q&A session. I have several questions here. So if you have some questions, just write it down directly in the chat room. So the first the first question is for Dr. Marlanggita. It is from, I'm sorry, Saiful Rizal. They just, can you mention again what kind of the DNA extraction kit did you use? Please, Dr. Marla. And maybe I just want asking about how to extract the DNA because of this bacterial is intracellular, how you doing the extraction?
Okay, can you hear my voice, Dr. Denny?
Yes.
Okay, so the first question is from Sir Sheikul Rizal. Thank you, sir, for the question. We use this tool DNA isolation mini kit. It's from the buffer gene, and it's specifically we use it for the it's the special kit to extract the DNA from the stool sample or feces from the fresh or from the frozen sample of feces. But it takes quite a long time. We need approximately 6 hours from the first step until we keep the DNA in the elution buffer. So it's quite a long time. But it has a good result because we can extract the DNA from the stool sample. And then the second question from Dr. Denny, how we extract the DNA from the Chlamydia because it's an intracellular bacteria. So we try to extract two kind of bacteria. It's the extracellular one, it's Salmonella, and the intracellular one, it's Chlamydia. So first we try to culture the bacteria, but we can't do the Chlamydia culture in our lab because we don't have, at the time, we don't have support medium for the Chlamydia for the intracellular bacteria. So we got some study done from many authors that we can extract the Chlamydia directly from the fresh sample of stool. So it really takes a short time because today we collect the samples, the fresh stool samples, and then we put it on freezer, and then the next day we extract from the morning till the afternoon, and then we perform the PCR. So it takes 2 days from the sample collection until we have the result. That is, Dr. Denny, my answer. Thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Marla, for the answer. I think it was clear. So the next question is to Mrs. Astari. Are you there? You can, okay, thank you. You can turn on your microphone. The question from Mr. Widodo Suito, the question is, what is Clostridium sp isolated? Because Clostridium sp is an aerobe bacteria that common in gastrointestinal, and all bacteria that you isolated is aerobe bacteria. Please, time is yours.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Widodo. But unfortunately, the bacteria identified from this research are only Escherichia coli and Proteus mirabilis. And there are no any species of Clostridium that are being isolated and identified in this research. And for additional information, the isolation method and identification method that are being done in this research are actually being done in two ways, which is incubated aerobically and anaerobically. But the dominant bacteria that are being identified in this research are only Escherichia coli and Proteus mirabilis, and they both are facultative anaerobe bacteria. Thank you.
Okay, it is clear, Mr. Widodo. If you have more question, you can asking directly to email to the Mrs. Astari.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Widodo. So for the third presenter, Mr. Topas or Dr. Kustari.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kustari. Because there's no question, I wanna asking some question.
If you can ask questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In your results, showed that the stage time of parturition was different with the literature. Did you analyze what the reason why it is different? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Denny. Yeah. First, I want to apology that I just realized that I used another virtual background.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yes, that is the one that we want to study about this, especially for the crossbreed cows, yeah, because they have some different performance of the reproduction. Okay, so maybe the reason why it's different from the original breed, yeah, because this is what we call it for the EO is the tropical cattle. You know, maybe because the nutrition and also the breed also, yeah. But you know, in the smallholder farm, you maybe remember that they give nutrition maybe under the standard nutrition. So maybe that's one that influence the hormonal stability in the cow. So maybe the hormonal induction for the parturition is going too slow. So it's also affect to the time of the stage. I think that's the reason.
Okay, I really thank you, Dr. Gustari, for the answer. Okay, you can turn off your microphone again.
Thank you.
Okay, right now we're going through to the last session in this parallel session. So there is 3 presenter. The first is with the paper ID 38157 with the title a comparison of 3 spectrophotometric methods for protein concentration determination of soluble trypanosome antigen. And the second videos is with the paper ID 38 and 161 with the title Identification of Lactobacillus spp on basis morphological, physiological, and biochemical characteristic from Jawa Super Chicken Chicken excreta. And then the third videos is with the paper ID 38 165 with the title Osimum sanctum lin ethanolic extract prevents apoptosis on the in vitro model neurodegeneration induced by trimethyltin. Okay, so please co-host play the videos. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Zul Azmi from God Research Station, Ministry of Agriculture, Indonesia. I will presenting our study about a comparison of three spectrophotometric methods for protein concentration determination of soluble trypanosoma antigen. Establishing of consistent and reproducible method for soluble trypanosoma antigen protein concentration determination is important for the purpose of characterizing and standardizing antigen production. Quantitative analysis of amino acids is the main method of quantification of protein because it is not affected by protein composition and does not require calibration. However, these analyses are impractical and expensive. Therefore, it is not suitable for testing in antigen production process. As for this reason, protein quantification by colorimetric methods under standard proteins is preferable. Several colorimetric-based protein quantification methods that are often used are Biuret, Lowry, Bradford, and bisinconinic acid or BCA. Therefore, this study aims to determine the most suitable protein quantification method for soluble trypanosoma antigen that will be used in Sura Elisa kit. Material and methods. Protein quantification was performed under three different kits. Bradford assay from Biuret, Lowry assay from Thermoscientific, and BCA assay from Thermoscientific. Soluble trypanosoma antigen protein identification was carried out by sodium dodecyl sulfate polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis or SDSP. The quantification result of soluble trypanosoma antigen protein using several methods in 5 batches showed consistent result. BCA method has the highest total protein concentration, while the lowest was Bradford assay. The protein concentration was 2-fold higher in BCA assay than in Lowry assay and 4 times higher than in Bradford assay. Look, the protein amount that electrophoresis was equal 10 microgram. The protein profile and its band intensity resulted were different. The results showed that Bradford assay has more number in protein bands, 22 bands, than Lowry assay, 18 bands, and BCA assay, 15 bands. And besides, the band intensity of Bradford assay was stronger than 2 other assays. This result suggests that high protein quantification value resulted by Lowry and BCA assay are pseudo value. Probable it was influenced by the presence of interfering substances in soluble trypanosoma antigen, so that the protein concentration value under Lowry and BCA assays looks higher. Consumption of the Bradford assay was 75% lower than Lowry assay and 60% lower than the BCA assay. Likewise, the consumption of the Bradford assay reagent was 14% lower than the Lowry assay and 5% lower than BCA assay. In terms of time consumption, the Bradford assay was also lower than Lowry and BCA assay, where the Bradford assay time consumption was 89% lower than the Lowry assay and 86% lower than the BCA assay. This indicated that besides the good quality of the result, the Bradford assay is also more efficient in terms of laboratory practicality. Bradford method is the most accurate method for protein concentration measurement under our laboratory condition. Lowry and BCA methods cannot predict protein concentration accurately based on the quality control of electrophoresis. Thus, it is recommended to use Bradford method for soluble trypanosoma antigen protein concentration determination. Thank you very much for your attention and have a nice day.
Okay, thank you. For the next videos, please co-host play the videos. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to presentation about identification of lactobacillus on basis morphological, physiological, and biochemical characteristic from Java super chicken excreta. But firstly, I would like to introduce my team. Ending as presenter today, I am student in Faculty of Veterinary Medicine in Yogyakarta, and my lecturer Professor Widya Asmara, Professor Agnesia Endingti Hastuti Wahyuni, and Professor Puji Astuti. Action. Antibiotics in the use of non-therapeutic dose of growth promoter have been widely used as food additive to increase livestock production and control infection in livestock. But now their use has been banned because of the impact of resistance and residue on livestock products. Then the use of AGP or antibiotic growth promoter as a food additive for animals in Indonesia has regulated in law and starting from January 2018 and is written in the law of the Republic of Indonesia and in the regulation of the Minister of Agriculture of the Republic of Indonesia. One of the alternative for AGP that can be chosen is probiotic because probiotic have a beneficial impact on the host by improving the microbiota environment in the digestive tract. Commonly, probiotics that used in animal feed is bacteria, such as lactobacillus, bifidobacteria, and bacillus. All of lactic acid bacteria basically have the same characteristic. Gram-positive and uniform sport don't produce catalyzed enzyme, facultative and aerobe, able to ferment lactose with the main product being lactic acid, non-pathogenic, safe for consumption to improve human and livestock weight. Lactobacillus is acidotolerant and has a mechanism to inhibit the growth of various pathogenic bacteria. Lactobacillus probiotic are known several mechanisms to adhere to intestinal epithelial cells. This property is an important criteria for the colonization of lactobacillus in the gastrointestinal tract. Lactobacillus can be obtained from isolation from various sources, such as processed food products like kimchi, maybe yogurt, or maybe fermented fish, fermented meat, etc. Fermented feed like silage, living organs, and feces or excreta. Isolation of lactobacillus from feces or excreta can reflect the bacterial group that are in the digestive tract. This study aimed to identify the lactobacillus strains isolates from Java super chicken excreta as probiotic candidate. Material and method. Sampling a total of 12 samples of Java super chicken excreta were collected from a farm in Kalasan, Yogyakarta. The sample were immediately brought to the laboratory for isolation and identification of lactic acid bacteria by morphology, physiology, and biochemical characteristic. Hemolytic activity was carried to determine the safety of bacteria isolate as probiotic candidate. Result in discussion. From the 12 samples analyzed, only 4 samples were able to be isolated and identified. Based on morphological tests, all bacteria isolates were gram-positive, catalase negative, fermentative, non-motiled, and fat-shaped. The colonies were circle, slightly and wide. All the bacteria isolates were found to be good acid producer by changing the color of the medium completely from purple to yellow within 48 hours incubation. Similarly, study was reported by Dilahun. Group of Lactobacillus enterococcus were found to be good acid producer by changing the color of the medium completely from green to yellow within 12 hours of incubation. Lactic acid bacteria, which produces acid, belong to genera Pediococcus, Lactobacillus, Streptococcus, Leuconostoc, and Bacillus species. The general characteristics of lactic acid bacteria are gram-positive and don't form spores. Almost all strains are unable to produce the enzyme catalase facultatively and able to ferment lactose with lactic acid as the main product. The reaction catalase negative show that there is no degradation to oxygen by the catalase enzyme. From the physiologic test, all bacteria isolates were not able to grow at temperatures of 10 degrees Celsius, but survive under low pH and by salt condition after 24-hour incubation. Based on table 1, the growth of the bacteria decreased at pH 3, and the maximum growth was observed at pH 5. And G5 show the best tolerance to bile salts, but G12 show the best growth in the pH 2. Based on the biochemical test by analytical profile index 50 CHL in the table 2, all isolates were identified as lactobacillus. All isolates called from 20 types of carbohydrate, including L-arabinose, ribose, bacillus, galactose, glucose, fructose, adenosine, mannitol, and acetylglucosamine, amygdalin, arbutin, ascorbin, salicin, salabulose, maltose, lactose, mellidiose, trehalose, derafinose, and B. gentivius. Isolate G1, we know species identified as Lactobacillus plantasus, G5 Lactobacillus brevis, G10 Lactobacillus rhamnosus, and G12 Lactobacillus plantasus. With percent similarity, Lactobacillus brevis, isolate G5 has 99.1% similarity. Based on hemolytic activity, all bacteria isolate in this study show no positive hemolysis, as there was no change in the color of the medium surrounding the colony and with agar plates compared to positive control Staphylococcus aureus. Similar study was reported by Talapragada et al. And Marakoudakis et al. That Lactobacillus SPG341TO2, Lactobacillus fermentum, and Lactobacillus paracasei showed gamma hemolysis. WHO and FAO recommended the other evaluation for the safety of probiotic strain by antibiotic accessibility testing. Previous study reported Lactobacillus brevis and Lactobacillus plantasus isolated from Black and Jawa super chicken excreta showed resistant to streptomycin. In conclusion, the bacteria were successfully isolated from Jawa super chicken excreta and identified as Lactobacillus using the morphological, physiological, and biochemical tests. The bacteria identified as Lactobacillus brevis and Lactobacillus plantasus were confirmed using AP7 CHL with a similarity level of 99%. Further studies are needed to assess the microbial activity and microbial resistance to complement probiotics. I think that's all. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you. So we go to session. Okay, please. co-host. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dinda Alivia. I'm from the Department of Anatomy, Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Gadjah Mada University. And now I would like to present my presentation about Otimum sanctum lean ethanolic extract prevent apoptosis on the in vitro model neurodegeneration induced by 3-methylene for ICAVESS 2021. Before we conducted the current research, we undertook a literature review observing about neurodegenerative diseases. Neuronal cell death is the main feature of many human neurodegenerative diseases. The data from World Alzheimer's report proposed that in developed and developing countries, increasing the number of lives also give additional problems, tremendously increasing persons suffering from neurodegenerative disease, example Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson are occurring, and it's already predicted in the year of 2040 will be reached become 135.5 million people. And Otimum sanctum belongs to the family of Lamiaceae, is one of the potential herbs used for medication. Almost parts of Otimum sanctum now extensively accepted and give several advantages as an anti-inflammatory, anti-allergic, antioxidant, radioprotective, and also as anti-carcinogenic. In silico analyzed the minimum binding energy of rosmarinic acid of Otimum sanctum lean ethanolic extract, or EEOS, against caspase-3 and caspase-9 on neurodegenerative disease, and in vitro analyzed the ability of Otimum sanctum lean extract to inhibit oxidative stress and apoptotic in red pheochromocytoma cell or PC12 cell line through down-regulate caspase-3 and caspase-9. Thin layer chromatography of ethanolic extract of Otimum sanctum lean were examined in order to observe the presence of flavonoid, phenol, steroid, terpenoid, tannin, saponin, and alkaloid. The phenol content in the EEOS is about 12.14%, and one of the phenolic acid that occurs in the some member of the Lamiaceae family is rosmarinic acid. So moving on to the result, and this is in silico analysis were done in order to evaluate inhibiting efficacy of the rosmarinic acid of EEOS. We found that rosmarinic acid is able to bind to arginine 164, cysteine 264, glycine 165, glutamine acid 124, proline 201, valine 266, glycine 137 from caspase-3 and inhibit the active site of the caspase-3. And also rosmarinic acid is able to bind to arginine 341 from caspase-9 and inhibit the active site of caspase-9. On in vitro model neurodegeneration, antioxidant activity of EEOS on red PC12 cells was observed by exposing red PC12 cells to neurotoxic shock with 10 micromolar of TMT. The result on in vitro analysis showed that administration of EEOS at a concentration of 75 microgram per milliliter was able to maintain the viability of PC12 cell in the presence of TMT. Same as non-treated cell endonepizial administration compared to 50 microgram of EEOS. So the conclusion is, in silico as well as the in vitro analysis demonstrate that the chemical compound of EEOS can inhibit the cleavage sites of caspase-3 and caspase-9 to prevent the apoptosis on in vitro model of neurodegenerative disease in PC12 cell line. I would like to thank, obviously, the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Gadjah Mada University, for letting us to record this presentation today, and Department Anatomy and Integrated Laboratory for Research and Testing, Gadjah Mada University, and also the Ministry of Research, Technology, and Higher Education, Republic of Indonesia, for funding this research. And last but not the least, for following people who helping us with data collection and a number reference there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, co-host. So right now we're going through the Q&A session. If you have the question, just write it down in the chat room. Okay. We have several questions, but for the first presenters, we have no question. So I have some question, please. Okay, thank you, Mr. Sulasmi. I don't know a lot about the spectrophotometric methods, but I just want to know if there is about the price between the three spectrophotometric methods. You already divided into the several variables to know which kind of effective kit. So which is any significant differences between the significant differences of the price between three of this kit?
But if the price of the three kits is not really different because it's commercial.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you I don't know if there is any plus and minus in each three kits, but I don't know. So what do you think about based on your data? What do you think you prefer to use actually in Indonesia in your experience to do the sample in Indonesia?
It to concentrate determining the concentration of the protein, the antigen, and different antigen, and we use the different method, and so in daripada sama antigen soluble antigen, the best method is Bradford from our data.
Oh, okay. I already get your answer. So thank you, Mr. Sulasmi, for your answer. We're going to do the second question. Second question to Mrs. Dini. Can you turn on your videos? Hello, Mrs. Dini Lutfiani, are you there? Okay, Mrs. Dini, there is any question for you? One question from Mr. Widodo Suwito. You already answered in chat. Maybe you should answering directly in this video. Why you use Java Super Chicken for isolation Lactobacillus sp? I think Lactobacillus sp can isolate in broiler chicken, layer chicken, and kampung chicken. I want to know what is the reason that you use isolation from Java Super Chicken. Thank you. Please.
Thank you. Mr. Denny, I already answered the question from Mr. Widodo via chat group ya?
Yes, via chat group.
Yeah.
Yes,
No
maybe
problem.
you can answering directly in the video.
Okay.
For all of the participants.
Okay. Because there are very few reports about isolated lactobacillus from Java Super Chicken excreta, and I'm looking for lactobacillus as probiotic candidate. If I isolate lactobacillus from broilers, we know that the broiler feed contains AGP, antibiotic growth promoter, and it is worrying to get lactobacillus that resistant to some antibiotic if we consume product from broiler. And we know that Java Super Chicken is a cross between layer hens and native chicken. So I think if I isolate from Java Super Chicken, I hope I can get lactobacillus good candidate probiotic for use poultry.
Okay.
Okay.
Dini.
Okay.
Okay, Dini.
Thank you, Miss Dini, for the answer. Miss, I hope it's already finished for Mr. Widodo, right? So for the last question, for Dinda, are you there? Please turn on your camera. So here the question from Saiful Rizal. Dinda, there are so many software for in silico study. Which one did you see, and why? Please answer the question. Thank you. I'm sorry, Miss Dinda. Can you use your microphone because there's no voice? Okay. Thank you. Because we have no time, could you make it shorten, Miss Dinda?
Masuk nggak suaranya?
Iya, masuk. Oh iya. Oh iya, yes. I hear your voice. I'm sorry.
Hello? Can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay, for the software, for this in silico analyze, we use Discover Studio version 19.0 and program Pyrex 1.8. And for the why, actually, I'm so sorry, because this in silico analyze was not me that do that. So maybe I will discuss with my team and my supervisor. Yes, seperti itu. Halo?
Yes, it's okay. It's okay, Dinda. Thank you for your answer. So for Mr. Saiful, you can going through to the email to the Miss Dinda and team to asking about your question. And I think that's all for today. So I will give the time to Dr. Sasrin to closing this parallel session. Thank you.
Jenny? Yeah,
Yes,
I
you're
see
welcome.
also Miss Ulayatul actually also asked to Miss Dinda, but maybe Miss Dinda will answer you through email. So, okay, before we close today's session, please turn on your video, both participants and presenters. We will have a picture together. Here we already have 38 people. Can you turn on your camera, your video? Is everyone ready? Okay, I think not all can turn on your video. So we will just start. For the first page. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Smile, please. Okay, and then the second page. Another smile. Okay, thank you, everyone. So please go back to the main room to attend the closing ceremony. And thank you for your participation today, and see you in the main room. Thank you. The closing ceremony will start at 4 p.m. So around 30 minutes from now. So you still have maybe around 10 minutes to grab a drink or to have a little bit rest before going to the closing ceremony. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mrs. Safrin and
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Dan ya. Thank you, Sunu.
Mbak Sastrin, makasih ya.
Ya, sama-sama.
Sehat-sehat di sana. Oh ya, makasih Den.
Makasih Denny, Amanda. Okay, see you di main room.